Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Akila Chang, and I am a rising senior at Boyd H. Anderson High School, a proud member of B2L's leadership team, and a grateful member of the YMCA program at Boyd. I am honored to kick off tonight's town hall on behalf of Bridge to Life and Broward's Local Access Network. Broward's Local College Access Network. We are pleased to have with us tonight 401 attendees representing students and parents from 32 high schools. Welcome also to college students, middle schoolers, and even elementary school students joining us. I would like to thank our B2L team, B2L and YMCA team members, sponsors, and partners. Of course, Data Kind, Greenberg Traurig, the Miami Dolphins, Land Infotech, Tech Lauderdale, Sherlock Talent, and Citrix. Also, the Children's Service Council of Broward, the DeLuca Foundation, 211 Broward, the Alliance, Broward College, and Florida International University. Okay, let's get started. Let me first explain the $500 cash award we're offering to 11 qualified students. B2L is offering a $500 cash award for students who attend 3 B2L town halls over the summer. This is the second. And who submit a 500-word essay or a really cool video on social media summarizing your key takeaways. Students' attendance at 3 town halls with the top 11 essays or videos will be awarded $500 by the end of August. So please pay attention tonight. First, through the lens of our speakers here tonight, you should leave here with the knowledge about the information technology industry sector. From cybersecurity to gaming, to healthcare IT to telecom. IT jobs are plentiful here. Check out this map from the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. You can download it. It shows the major tech companies in our region. IT talent is needed in every company. And do you know what the #1 job in IT is? Data scientist. Yes, that's right. The cool world of AI and machine learning. Second, we are going to learn about leadership and careers in IT. A brilliant data science will share how Data Kind is harnessing the power of data science and artificial intelligence in the service of humanity. Then, we will hear from a great lineup of IT leaders. A nationally renowned high-tech attorney will moderate a conversation with the CIO of a major NFL team, the CEO of the major IT recruiting company in South Florida, a CEO of well-respected IT company supporting hundreds of businesses locally, and a leader of a global cloud computing company who runs his own mentoring program for young Black men. Last, we are also going to talk about the guidance you need to have a career in data science and IT. There are 35 colleges and universities in our region offering well-defined, highly regarded computer and data science degrees. This career pathway is a high-skill, high-wage area of emphasis. Rather than focus on college options, we encourage all of you to investigate college course offerings. We will end this discussion tonight talking about other ways for you to obtain online credentials, certifications, and importantly, some great local mentoring programs. As we go along, please enter your questions in the Q&A box. We will be fielding your questions throughout. Are you excited? Because I am. I now have the honor of introducing our moderator for tonight, Jared Davis from Greenberg Traurig. You can see his amazing career trajectory on the screen. His list of accomplishments were too long to put on the screen. However, we are lucky to have him here with us tonight because he specializes in tech companies. Name a tech company in this area and he will know them. Jared, turning over to you.
Thank you, Akila. What a wonderful introduction. Phenomenal job. And absolutely thrilled to be here today. This is very exciting to moderate the panel. And as Akila mentioned, you have some technology professionals there at the top of their field. So we're very fortunate to have them. But before we even get into that more general dialogue, we're going to kick things off. We have a very special sort of keynote speaker. I have the honor of introducing Caitlin Augustine, a senior director at DataKind. You know, we hear so much about the field of data scientist, and I can tell you in my own practice, this is one of the most sought after positions you can have. The work that data scientists are doing with data analytics, et cetera, is second to none. And Caitlin's going to give us a little bit of a talk about that in terms of her career as a data scientist. And she's going to explain what that means, and specifically showing how data is used to solve, you know, as DataKind calls it, wicked problems, and explain and define the distinction of data science versus information technology careers. So welcome, Caitlin. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to hearing your remarks, and the microphone is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here today. As Jarrett mentioned, I'm Caitlin Augustine. I started as a DataKind volunteer back in 2014 when I was still a student at the University of Miami. And now I'm currently the senior director of product at DataKind. What that means is my team is really the engine room of DataKind. We are the team that identifies the problems and puts together the data scientists to really deliver these solutions on the wicked problems. It's also because of that I get to do things like talk with you all today. So I'm really thrilled to be able to give you a voiceover for DataKind, data science, and my personal journey to getting here. If you could click through to the next slide, please. Perfect. So at DataKind, we work on wicked problems. These problems are difficult, maybe even impossible to solve because of incomplete, contradictory, and changing requirements that are often difficult to recognize. They often include an ill-defined end state. For example, when have we solved poverty? But these are exactly the types of problems that we want to work on. The answers might not be mathematically optimized, but they are good or bad. And the problems are so interconnected that we need to work together across sectors to solve the problems and share information. So DataKind, you might think of us as these unicorns, that data scientists are, have these skills that are unattainable. You need to be a mix of every Avenger in order to demonstrate your prowess in this space. That's so wrong. The thing that you actually really need to do to be a data scientist is to know how to identify a problem and propose the pathway to solving that problem. So many of the data science skills that you need are really just problem-solving skills. And the actual technology, those tools, they're primarily free, they're open source, and they're open access. And that's really what DataKind focuses on to solve these wicked problems. So let me talk you through a couple of projects. You can click to the next slide, please. This first project we worked on was with an organization called Global Witness. And they work in the Democratic Republic of the Congo to fight corruption in the mining sector. What Global Witness wanted to do is to detect illegal or unsanctioned mines due to the health and environmental risks that they posed. Now, the current way that Global Witness goes about trying to identify these mines is by literally walking the length and breadth of the country. They have people physically going to location, trying to find these huge open pit mines. Now, they also do it through word of mouth survey, asking if people have seen these mines. Hugely inefficient. So what DataKind wanted to know was, could we find another way to help them identify these locations? And we had a team led by a volunteer from Google Brain use completely publicly available satellite imagery data and completely publicly available training data from the International Peace Information Service to build a detection model using Python, which is a free software, to detect these irregular mines. So it actually is able to locate on a map where a mine was detected, but it was not on a government registry. And the team was able to say, hey, this open source, open access information is sufficient for detecting those mining areas with high but imperfect accuracy, meaning we can't blindly test the solution, but frankly, you can't blindly test trust any data science solution. And it's a great tool for Global Witness to help deploy their investigative resources more strategically. Now, let me just tell you about another problem that we're interested in solving. If you could click to the next slide. Completely different area. In this case, we wanted to work with an organization called Simpa Networks in India. And they have a pay-as-you-go solar electricity model. But they lose a lot of their resources because of lack of repayment for those solar loans. Now, our DataKind team was able to work with Simpa to help them identify the type of customers that would be more likely to repay their loans. And they were able to help extend Simpa Networks offerings to people who could traditionally not get loans. And so they were able to not only increase the repayment, but expand the potential customer pool. Huge success there. Now, I'll move you to our third problem that I want to tell you about. It's my last international example. If you could just click to the next slide. This one starts with a really sobering fact that 36% of the global population lacks access to a toilet. And this has huge health and environmental problems. This is an issue that is particularly evident in Haiti, where there were nearly 14,000 cases of cholera in 2017. Our partner organization is an organization called SOIL, and they work on something called Dignified Sanitation in Haiti, where they have provided over 1,000 households with something called container-based sanitation toilets, meaning that they are actually, as you can see in this picture, they are these containers, like very large buckets that are portable toilets that the SOIL agency delivers to homes clean, and they pick up the waste-filled toilets at the end of a week, and they transform all of that waste into agriculture-grade compost. So it's a great solution. It's a great way to ensure environmental health and human health in this area. But our partners faced two major problems, if you can click to the next slide. Now, they have these big problems. They needed to manage the costs and logistics of that actual transportation. So how do you get your container-based sanitation to the locations, and how do you do the pickup? And how do you make that efficient? So if you only have 100 vehicles to be able to do these pickups each day, how do you ensure that you're actually going to all of the right locations in the right time? So what our team was able to do was to solve this problem, which is called the capacitated vehicle problem. So this is a very well understood optimization problem. And our team was able to create a software solution that leveraged OpenStreetMap, which is, again, it's an open source data set, and an open source set of tools called the Google OR tools to build a free, again, open source, open access technology solution that created an output of an HTML app plus text instructions. So these turn-by-turn instructions of where you would need to go that could be used without cellular or data access, which is a key component of a solution here because most of Haiti has fairly poor cell and data coverage. And what these are just images of what those maps looked like. So where would you go for one particular route, which would be this red route, and then what all the different routes on a particular pathway looks like. So how many different routes could someone take? And those are each of those different colors represented. Now, what's pretty amazing is that at the last assessment, SOIL was able to cut down their overall trips taken by over 13%, which is a huge resource savings that allows them to go serve new populations with their particular solution. So I've talked to you about a couple of international solutions here. Now, I want to take you to our next slide, which actually introduces a US problem. Now, this is something called Vision Zero. So Vision Zero is a global movement. It started in Sweden and is centered on the idea that no pedestrian or bicycle death by motor vehicle is acceptable. And buy-in has occurred from mayors across both small and large cities. And so DataKind, armed with the question of how do we reduce traffic deaths, brought together a consortium of stakeholders in 3 partner cities. So we worked in New York City, Seattle, and New Orleans to build this model of that gave us insight to how do we reduce traffic deaths. So if you click to the next slide, what I'll say again is we used primarily open data. Over 90% of the data that we were able to use on this project was completely open source and open access. And we were able to build a machine learning model of crash prediction. So predicting if the crash would occur or not. But we also wanted to understand how dangerous or safe a particular intersection would be, and if that intersection needed an intervention. So that intersection, say, need a stoplight, need a stop sign, need a speed limit change, need a bike lane. So we had to understand, in order to understand if a intersection was dangerous or safe, we had to understand how many vehicles passed through that particular intersection. And we had over 100 features for this model, but we found that the traffic volume estimate, so how much traffic was going through, if there were already signals within a particular proximity, and the number of intersections at the particular light, so how many streets were actually intersecting at that particular intersection, were key indicators of if a intersection was safe or not. And we were able to use this to ultimately build a crash model to allow each of these cities to simulate the different effects of changes that they could make to their traffic policy. So if they wanted to change the particular flow on a street, or if they wanted to add in bus lanes, what that would change. So a really amazing solution. Now, if you click over to the next slide, I'll tell you how DataKind made this possible. So DataKind is able to do this because of our global network. We have 5 chapters with 20,000 community members in 98 countries. And we are a completely volunteer organization. So for those of you interested in doing machine learning, data science, and AI, we are a great organization to become a part of. Now, I mentioned a little bit about my own experience. I started as a volunteer when I was finishing my PhD work, but that was actually really kind of the end of my data science journey. I would say my data science journey started more when I was your age. When I was a high school student, I was in Girl Scouts. And you can say I'm a nerd, that I was a Girl Scout in high school, but Girl Scouts allowed me to really work on problem solving. I was able to do volunteer work as a Girl Scout. I was able to do career day visits to organizations and locations that I would not have been able to visit without that. And I was able to really be exposed to many different ideas and opportunities that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So started with Girl Scouting. And in high school, I took as many math and science classes as I could. And I knew that I wanted to be an engineer, but I didn't know how to do that. I ended up going to college on an athletic scholarship. And when I got to college, I changed my major 6 times. So I was an engineer, but I was every single type of engineer that the University of Miami offered. And I'll admit that some of those changes occurred because I failed physics one time, and I really didn't like statics. And so I would encourage you, as you're thinking of your data science journey, to keep trying to find the solutions that fit for you. I found the organization Engineers Without Borders, which is the first time I really volunteered as a data scientist. And Engineers Without Borders let me use my problem-solving skills and my skills with technology to solve wicked problems in places like Honduras, Haiti, and Peru as a student. And it was that experience that let me really find a graduate school program and say, you know what, this is what I want to do with my life. And through grad school, that's how I found DataKind. So that's just a little bit of my journey and my path there. And with that, I think I'll hand it back to Jarrett for your questions or to move us kind of along here.
I'll step in, Caitlin. That was amazing. We had a number of questions about students interested in volunteering and how they would go about that. And after you answer that, for everyone listening, I'm going to type in the chat, the first chat raffle prize question. So as Caitlin is answering, get ready to respond to the chat raffle prize. And then as soon as Caitlin is done, back to you, Jarrett. Thank you.
Sure. So for DataKind, I'll post it in the chat in a second. We have a online, just a sign up where you can sign up to be a volunteer with us. About once a quarter, we have a 1,000+ person volunteer experience that you can definitely join us on. You can also, we have a lot of volunteer opportunities through our network. So we can help connect you with other organizations who are doing different type of volunteerism as well. But definitely to volunteer with DataKind, please just apply on our website and we'd love to have you.
Perfect. Thank you, Caitlin. And I see that Colleen just put up the first raffle prize question. What? I think somebody just answered it. Very impressive. All right. So while you guys are answering, I'll let Caitlin, I'll let Colleen announce who's the winner there. Caitlin, thank you so much for giving up your time and your expertise. It's absolutely amazing what data analytics can do out there. You can see the different kinds of issues that mankind's facing, that this can be solved with technology. A lot of times we always think, this involves Peace Corps type work, et cetera, and that's noble work. But you can see through technology, you can also alleviate those problems. I always tell people technology is power. And Caitlin, you've demonstrated through your background and your experience that technology is indeed power. You can move the world. Thank you so much for that. So with that, we're going to go on to our leadership panel. Some amazing folks we have here. And I have to tell you, this panel is absolutely powerful. The panel is going to consist of Kim Rometto, CIO of the Miami Dolphins. I assume everyone out here is well familiar with that organization. Then we have Alex Funkhauser, CEO of Sherlock Talent, Michael Goldstein, CEO of Land Infotech, Albert Gibbs, a senior manager at Citrix, and Zaya Cooper, a junior at FAMU studying computer science. So we're all thrilled to have you here. And the purpose of this panel is really to discuss the exciting world of information technology careers. What are the opportunities? What's required? What are the credentials? Things like that. What was your path to getting there? And before we get into this, part of the purpose of all this is to demystify the process. I think 50% of the issue we face, at least I did when I was in high school, was everything seemed so mysterious. There wasn't a lot of clarity as to how I get involved. So part of our goal is to demystify and knock down obstacles. And before we get into the panel proper, I want to get into sort of the big elephant in the room in terms of those obstacles, which would be the issue of race, racial equity, anti-racism, et cetera. You're hearing a lot about this in the news these days, and we thought we'd be remiss if we didn't at least address it to some extent. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my own perspective on this, and then Kim, if you can give the perspective through your work with the Dolphins, and I would love for Albert, Michael, and Alex to just give a much briefer, the synopsis of how their organizations address this. But the real question is basically, what is your organization doing in terms of diversity and inclusion? How are you including that in your day-to-day operations? And I'll start off first with my law firm, Greenberg Traurig. We are one of the largest law firms in the world, actually. And we're the single largest law firm in the state of Florida and Miami. And so as you can imagine, we have a lot of people, 2,000 lawyers, another 3,000 business staff, and I'm proud to say of incredible diversity. And so we wrestle with these issues because, we always say diversity, the real power of diversity is perspective. That if you don't have everyone in the room, you don't give everyone a place at the table, you don't get all perspectives. And as anyone in business, and I'm sure my colleagues in the panel will agree with this, anyone in business will tell you if you're lacking a certain perspective, that means you're not taking advantage of a potential opportunity because you couldn't see it, because you didn't have someone with a certain background that could have pointed out to you. And so we try very hard to make sure that as many different types of people are included in our organization. And it really, to me, falls into two buckets. And one would be trying to make sure you have that critical mass of people from diverse backgrounds so that people feel welcome. The worst feeling in the world, and I've been there before, the worst feeling in the world is when you feel like you're the only one in the room. And so having that critical mass of every different type of person, make sure not only are you diverse, but that the diverse person feels included and can contribute to the company. So having that critical mass is critical. And then trying to deal with implicit bias. And that's really the difficult one. We always talk about implicit bias. You may be saying, well, what is that exactly? Implicit bias is sort of the the more subtle version of racism, if you will. I mean, there's one thing to be overtly racist and have views about different people based on their race, their nationality, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, etc. This is where you're not that person. This is where we all harbor within ourselves certain implicit biases. We just think certain things about certain people, but we don't realize it. It's at a subconscious level. And I always, when we do training at my firm, I always tell people, you know, overt racism, where people just hate somebody or have negative feelings about someone, I would say that's an evil. Implicit bias is probably more analogous to being sick. And I would argue we all have that sickness. I know I do. You know, I'm 45 years old. I've been around the block enough times, and I can guarantee you I probably have some implicit biases towards people based on race, ethnicity, etc. So the goal isn't, we teach our people, the goal isn't to sit there and just say, well, I don't have that. That's not me. That's not my problem. The goal is to say, you know what? I may have that in me, but because I have that in me, I have to be conscious of it. And when I make decisions, when it comes to hiring people, when it comes to promoting people, when it comes to giving them more opportunities, when it comes to setting their compensation, so that if I'm evaluating someone who's differently than me, I should be thinking in the back of my mind, well, you know, is my assessment of their performance, is that based purely on merit, or is that maybe some implicit bias that I have, things of that sort? And so we do that training a great deal. And I found that by personalizing it to me and saying, look, I'm adding myself in there. I mean, I hope my employees, you know, feel I'm a good guy. So that by saying that I suffer from this, my hope is that they'll all look within themselves as well and do that introspective analysis. So that's the implicit bias. On the critical mass side, I mentioned making sure you have enough of diverse people that people feel included. We have what we call affinity groups, and this isn't new. A lot of corporations have this. So that basically you have the African American affinity group, the LGBTQ affinity group, the women's leadership affinity group. These are groups within these different categories where people can feel I can go to these groups and make sure my voice is heard by the firm, and make sure that it's meaningful. Now, the tricky part about having those groups is that you run the risk of people say, oh, well, for diversity, that's being handled by the groups. We don't have to deal with that. And we're always very conscious of that and say, no, no, no. Everyone needs to own diversity and inclusion. If you are a leader within our firm, it's everyone's issue. It just so happens we have these affinity groups because it makes the conversations easier. It makes it easier to make sure we're addressing them. But every single leader within our organization needs to own that because it benefits every single person in this organization. So that's really where we come from. And I just thought it was absolutely critical that we address that. And Kim, I would love to hear from you what the perspective is from the Miami Dolphins on this issue as well. And like I mentioned to the other panelists, just a much shorter version. I'll call on you in a second as well. But Kim, if you could share with us the Dolphins' perspective on this, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So it's interesting. You mentioned having a lot of employees. We don't. We have around 300 employees in total, but we are a very, very big brand, as everybody on the call probably knows. And what one of the things that drew me to the Dolphins organization was that in 2016, Stephen Ross and Tom Garfinkel started the Miami Dolphins Football Unites program, and really the goal was to work to level the playing field for a healthier, more educated, more united South Florida community. And there's been diversity and inclusion programs and awareness programs with really the goal of uniting different races, genders, sexual orientations, identities, abilities, and faith around the power of football and then the power of team. Partners in this Football Unites program include the Believe in Me Foundation, Big Brothers Big Sisters of Broward and Miami, Boys and Girls Club of Broward County, Breakthrough Miami, Generations of Cure, and YMCA. So we took a community first approach, and really as of recent, we're doing the same things that you're talking about. So that unconscious or implicit bias training that will be held again for us in early August, and then continuing education and that acknowledgement that that it starts with me. And in addition, we're cooperating with the NFL. We're going to offer some anti-racism training, social responsibility, and then respect in the workplace. So there's a lot of pieces and components to addressing, you know, the topic of racism and unconscious bias, and it really, you have to approach it from several, you know, different angles. And being, you know, so rooted in the South Florida community, it's important that we continue to look for guidance and leadership in the community to then influence our organization.
Thanks, Kim. Michael, what's Land Infotech's perspective on this important issue? And I know we're running short on time with this question, so if you keep it to a minute, even though it's so important, that'd be fantastic.
Definitely. So we're a small business. We're 20 users, 20 people in there. My 2 kids work in our office, and we've always tried to, you know, equal opportunity hire, go out there, change with the times, but we really go out and we focus a lot on helping out in the community. So not only are we out in, you know, synagogues, churches, various Chamber of Commerce, but we try to contribute as best we could to various organizations and then promote that specifically in our company so that everybody goes out and sees that we really do care about individuals out in the community.
Perfect, thanks. Albert, I know Citrix, in addition to being a general phenomenal corporate citizen, you guys have done some real thought leadership in this area. Would you like to share what you guys are doing?
Yeah, most definitely, Jared. So one of the things that Citrix did that I thought was extremely important was we actually had an open dialogue with the executive team led by David Henshaw, our CEO, and the Black Professional Network, ERG. And so in this Daring Dialogue series, members of the Black Professional Network were able to share some of their personal experiences and to have some open dialogue with our leadership team. And then from there, come up with a collaborative plan of how a company we're going to approach this, you know, through donations, through partnerships, and then support. And also taking a hard look at, you know, even though we try our best, you know, everyone falls short. And so one of the things that we took away from that initial Daring Dialogue series and the meetings where we were going to hire a consultant to really take a look and keep us accountable, and make sure that we're continuing to follow the goals that we set forth, not just for right now while this is a hot topic, but for many years to come.
Perfect. And Alex, let's round it out with you. I mean, you are all about talent management, and implicit in that is this whole discussion of diversity and inclusion. What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Jarrett. Yeah, of all industries, I believe the technology industry is more based on merit than most industries. In my world, when I'm hiring someone for a technology role, I want to have the best technology skills for that role. I don't care gender, race, none of that matters. I just want to have the best technologist on my team. That's my perspective, Jarrett.
Perfect. I think that's a perspective we can all share. Perfect way to end that question. So let's get to the questions proper. You know, now we've dealt with this important issue. Let's talk about the other aspects of getting into the technology field. So I always find first it's helpful to plot out career journeys. You know, when I was a young person, you know, looking up to people, I always thought, well, how did you get to where you got? I think the most common question I get is exactly that. How did you get to where you are now? And so I always find it helpful to share my story, and I'll do that in a second, but I'd love for you guys to do the same. So Michael, you're going to be on deck after me, and Kim with the Dolphins, same thing. And when you guys give your story, as I'm about to, I'd appreciate if you could go through what certifications you got, what education credentials. You know, a lot of the questions people have will be, you know, how many years of college am I looking at? Am I looking at college at all? Should it be a certification program outside of college? Should I do certifications to supplement, you know, what higher ed I get? So those kind of things. But I'd love for you, beyond that, there's no rules. You know, your story, your narrative, we want to hear it in your voice. And I'm going to start that off, and I'm going to try and be brief, which is uncharacteristic for a lawyer. But, you know, first off, to explain to everyone a little bit more what I do, I'm sort of a unicorn. You hear that in technology a lot, but I am a corporate lawyer. That means I do transactional law. If you put me in a courtroom, it's malpractice. I do not go to court. And people always hear that and say, well, wait a minute, a lawyer that doesn't go to court, well, what kind of creature is that? There's a whole world of lawyers called transactional lawyers. And what do? We help companies raise money for their operations. We help companies buy and sell each other. We call that mergers and acquisitions. So you hear about fancy terms like private equity, venture capital, all these different players. That's what I do, but I do that almost exclusively for technology companies. So both IT companies as well as biotech. And, you know, that's an interesting area to go into, and particularly for me, because I didn't really have any technologists in my family. And then I had a twofer, I had a double dose, because I didn't have any lawyers in my family either. So, starting my life, I sat there thinking, well, I really don't have a direct mentor. How do I figure this out? And I guess I asked everyone to go over your credentials. I did get my Bachelor of Arts from the University of Miami. So real quick, I'm going to do that. I got my Bachelor of Arts in Economics because I felt that the critical thinking skills that economics gave me, plus the modeling. You're going to hear a lot about mathematics and modeling that goes into technology. I very much enjoyed the financial modeling that the high-level economics forced on me. And so that was 4 years. And then I had 3 years in law, getting what's called the Juris Doctor degree, also at the University of Miami School of Law. But in undergrad, I would geek out on technology all the time. I spent 4 years doing network diagnostics. One of my minors was computer science. Learned several coding languages. I mean, Python was in its infancy back then, as the 90s, so I didn't do Python, but a number of other languages. And I just knew I always enjoyed this. I simply wanted to go into law because I wanted to keep that high-level analytics, but at the same time, I liked people a lot, and I felt that law would give me that perfect combination. But like I said, I really didn't have anyone in my family or friends even who could give me guidance on that. And so what I ended up doing is just talking to a lot of people. And one thing, doing this enough and mentoring a whole lot of people in both technology and law, I can tell you the great secret nobody wants to share is that everyone is pretty much confused out there. I don't care who's in your family. I don't care who you know. When you get out there, everyone's pretty much in the same boat, which I found comforting once I figured that out, although it took me a while to figure that out. But in the meantime, basically, I just talked to every single person I could find. And what I also found is when you go into the most cutting edge work, remember, this was the 90s when I was doing this kind of technology law, very few people were doing it. And so the other aspect I found was if I don't have those relatives or background of people who can sort of provide that extra support, which is nice, I just didn't have it, going into something that's really cutting edge, where it's so cutting edge that no one else really has that background, was sort of an equalizing effect for me. Because, I'd go in and say, okay, I have no idea how this works, but guess what? No one else does on the planet either. So imagine becoming a data scientist, and when there's not that many at the time. Imagine going into some of the more cutting edge fields that's out there, AI, machine learning, et cetera. And so the advice I would give is, don't hold it against yourself if you're in my situation where you didn't have a family member that had that background. And don't be afraid to go into whatever is the most cutting edge at the time stuff, because that's really where it can equalize. And now I absolutely adore my job. I always joke my clients are changing the world. I'm a lawyer that wakes up every day smiling because of the interesting things we're doing. And in terms of credentialing, you've got some legal credentialing I won't get into, but in terms of technology stuff, I just read voraciously anything I can get my hands on. My clients are into facial recognition, emotional analytics, cloud, cybersecurity, big data. And so I want to always be in a position where I can talk with my CEOs 100% about what they're doing. And so I'm always trying to keep up. I'm always trying to refresh. Thanks to the internet, that's another great equalizer. I don't necessarily have to subscribe to classes or anything of that sort. I can keep up fairly easy that way. And so that's been my trajectory over the last 22 years of practicing this interesting field of corporate law, but with technology companies. And Michael, I'd be curious to hear, as an entrepreneur techie, from Land Infotech's perspective, what got you there, and what kept you going? What was the key to your success, including background, education, credentials, things of that sort?
Sure. So got a few more years on you. I actually did have my BA in economics, but I will tell you that in high school, I actually was a average C+ student. And I really wanted to go to, I lived in New York City. I really wanted to go to college because my dad always said that if I couldn't make it in schoolwork, I'd go to trade school and become an optician. So I figured out I was an avid swimmer. And when I went to State University of New York at Stony Brook, I got in there based upon my swimming qualifications. But as I realized I wasn't good enough to be on the team, and I'll use the year, 1979 is when I graduated high school. There really wasn't computers. And I jumped on this IT, computer sciences major. And I will tell you that I took 7 semesters of calculus. Did not understand half of what it was. I was an assembler programmer. I was a mainframe programmer. And in the end of my sophomore year, I failed my first class ever, and it was a programming class. I just couldn't believe it. And really what it came down to is that the teacher said, your half of your grade was based upon you writing this program. So I got from A to Z, and that professor just didn't like how I got there, even though it worked. I moved to economics, and when I graduated, I got a job for New York Life Insurance. Now, this was 1983. There wasn't a personal computer out yet. But in there, I learned about personal computers, and I had some programming skills, I had some networking skills, and I realized that if every week I went down to the IT department and signed up for training classes, I can better myself. After there, I actually went to work for CBS Financial, and was working in CBS's piece, and I realized that I can do things 100 times faster on a PC versus following the corporate infrastructure. So every night I'd be up till 3, 4 in the morning trying to figure this out. And one day I actually went to my boss and presented this to them, and they loved the idea. You know, from CBS, I went to work on, at CBS, I took my first graduate course. I figured, let me go in, maybe more education was better for me. And in that graduate course, because I worked for CBS Networks, the TV network, they own movie studios. And what the professor was saying, I just didn't understand. And I remember one day going up to the professor and telling him, listen, I work in this big IT department. And the guy looked at me and says, don't ever talk to me like that. I'm the professor. This is how we do things in college. And I realized that wasn't for me. I lived it every single day. And then I realized that, you know, you really had to be the best that you can be. You can't be everything to everyone. And I focused a lot on PCs. And Jared, believe it or not, I worked for one of the top 5 largest law firms in the world. And we came in, we had 7 PCs, but in the first year we had 100. By the end of the second year, we had 650. And I realized that it wasn't formalized training that you needed. At that time, I actually volunteered to teach at some colleges, and no internet. I would read everything that I could, and I considered myself a technologist. I helped found a small IT company in New York City. We were 3 people when we started, and 12 years later, we went all the way up to 65. And I learned that I will tell you, if you add up the years, I definitely have a lot of gray hairs. I will tell you that you have to be the best that you can be. And technology is changing the world. You look at all the things of artificial intelligence. Last week, I was part of Microsoft's Worldwide Partner Conference. And to actually hear someone speak in German, but yet I'm hearing it English and seeing the translation come across there using artificial intelligence, or to be able to take everyone's face and put them in a courtroom or into a conference room is just amazing. So, I have a lot of certifications that were trade certifications, whether you go out there and take CompTIA exams or Microsoft exams or Cisco exams. I will tell you that in IT, you always have to be the best that you can be. And you have to realize, just like if you're that backup quarterback, I always tell my clients that when you get that tap on the shoulder, they don't care what day of the week it is. They don't care what the weather is. You have to step up and perform, and you always have to be ready. And you always have to continue that education. So I have 3 kids that 24, 30, and 32. They all had a 4-year degree. I had a 4-year degree. I'm not saying that everybody needs a degree, but I think that everyone got a rounded education that's out there. But as an employer, we look for the best person, as Alex said, for the job. And I continually still have to take exams, take classes, just to be the best that I can be. And I think that I would leave you with that.
Outstanding. Thank you, Michael. And, Michael touches on a theme I want everyone to really focus on. And then, Kim, I'll give you the mic. That we live in a time now where for the rest of your life, and I'm not trying to say this as a negative, I think it's a great positive, you will be educating yourself forever. And it doesn't mean necessarily classes or certifications, et cetera. It could be something as simple as a new article comes out and you want to read it real quick. The times of education simply being a 4-year college degree or what have you, and then that's it, you're done, are pretty much over. We live in a rapidly changing world. And to keep up with that, you're going to be doing that. Your generation, I suspect, already has that mastered pretty well. Your comfort with technology, your comfort with information flowing. I mean, if I had gone back 30 years to and hit myself with the amount of data you guys are constantly exposed with, I'd probably go crazy. But it's a theme that's absolutely critical. I think that for the rest of your lives, you're going to constantly be learning about this world, constantly be learning, updating information you have, because the information updates are coming at such a rapid pace. Kim, what's your story? Love to hear about your background. I know you're relatively new to the Dolphins, I believe, and I'd love to hear about your saga prior to that.
Certainly. So I grew up in Ohio. I've just been making my way further and further south as time has gone on. And I went to Ohio University, and I started off as a mass communications major. And I will be honest, after my first year, I was bored. And I thought, I shouldn't be bored. I don't want the rest of my life to be boring. Like, I don't want to be bored in my career field. And I ended up going and meeting with a professor of one of the other colleges who told me about an infotech program, and he said it's tough. It's going to be tough, but you will love what you learn. And Dr. Roycroft was absolutely right. I struggled. I mean, I remember there were times where it was 3 o'clock in the morning and my code wouldn't compile in the engineering lab, and I was frustrated. But eventually it clicks. Eventually you start to get it. Those foundational pieces stay there. Once I could, subnet a network and design appropriately, like I knew I would have that skill forever. And so it became, kind of became progressive at that point. When I was at school, I then worked with the office to identify an internship. So went to work for AT&T as an intern. And I absolutely fell in love. That began the love affair of my career and my in technology in general. So got to do service delivery for AT&T, got to see how circuits were installed and solutions were deployed for Fortune 500 companies. And after graduating, AT&T hired me and they moved me to Atlanta, Georgia. A short stint in Atlanta, and SBC and AT&T merged, and I found myself laid off, and I wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen. But I was committed and put my resume out there and started interviewing. And 3 weeks later, I had another job working in trade shows and conventions, and worked my way up. Was at the organization for about 8 years when I decided I would go back and get my master's degree. And at that point, I knew that I wasn't going to be upset at 3 o'clock in the morning in the engineering lab anymore. I would find these wonderful relationships that I still have with peers all over the country. And we can turn to each other for advice and guidance. During that intermittent period, I did get some certifications. Michael alluded to CompTIA. I got a Network Plus certification. Would highly recommend that to anybody. Is kind of just validating that you've got the foundational knowledge correct. Continued to progress in my career. Anytime I saw an opportunity to take on more responsibility in the tech field, I raised my hand and I either just did it or asked to be given more responsibility. And that led to natural promotions. So when I left my prior organization, I was a vice president, and I had just finished one of the largest beacon deployments with turn-by-turn navigation fully integrated within an app, and that was one of the things that the Dolphins recruiter saw and really loved about my resume and got me the initial interview here. Once I accepted the job, moved down to Miami, I had a little bit of a challenge ahead of myself. I knew that within about a year of taking the job, we would host Super Bowl. So went through numerous fun things. There's a lot of facets of technology that people don't even realize exist, like audit and security. The amount of security that we had to do and the audits that had to be performed with Homeland Security to get prepared for a world event like Super Bowl. it was incredibly time consuming, but also very worthwhile of an effort. So we did things like migrate to the cloud for our CRM. We moved to Office 365. We put in a new firewalls. Like we did an incredible amount of work to get prepared for Super Bowl. And what was funny is that actually prepared us for COVID, and we just didn't realize it. We had all of our employees were on laptops already, so everyone could just go and work from home. We had deployed Teams, so we had a solution for video conferencing. A lot of the decisions that we made preparing for Super Bowl actually made it so that employees could just work remotely very, very easily. And I found that that transition has actually been really good for our organization, because we're finding new ways to collaborate and new ways to increase that dialogue across the different business units. So my path is a little different in that I didn't necessarily start out the same way you or Michael did, but I think my biggest takeaway or my biggest piece of advice for the group is you're going to do something for 30 years, and you really do you really should find something that you love and find something that you can continue to grow in, and technology is a wonderful field to do that, no matter which facet of the organization you choose to pursue.
Perfect. And the powerful part of your narrative is this notion that no one takes the same path. People always think, oh, to be a successful person, there's one set path you have to take, there's one template, and yours is the perfect example of that. That's absolutely not the case. So that's perfect. I think we have 2 minutes left here. Albert, can you give us your narrative, but keep it short, because I think we're about to run out of time.
Sure, Jared. So I'm actually local. I'm born here in Fort Lauderdale, and my introduction into technology really came through the form of an internship through a program called Inroads at Citrix. So at 18 years old, before I left to go study at the University of South Florida, I was an intern. And that was really the turning point for me as to really taking technology serious and look at all the different career opportunities that were in front of me. At University of South Florida, I ended up getting my degree in business. I did a degree in business and a secondary bachelor's in creative writing and postgraduate studies in Imperial College in London, England. But my foundation really came from the form of an internship. So getting internships and really putting forth that effort and really starting at a young age was really something that really set me on the right path.
All right, thanks. And I think now we're going to go to our next question. Alex will catch up with you. Actually, you're kind of the person I want to talk to for the next question, so it's a perfect segue. So we've gotten people's career journeys. Now let's talk about jobs. I mean, education is important and makes you a well-rounded person that prepares you for a job. But in many ways, one of the core questions our audience has is, well, if I'm interested in a job in tech, how do I do that? From part-time to entry-level jobs, internships, mid-management. There's a lot of different jobs out there, and there's a lot of credentials that are required for it. We talked about some of those. And, the questions become, what are those credentials? Do all data science and IT jobs require advanced credentials? I mean, we can forecast that. The answer is no, but let's talk a little bit about that. And so people are interested in, how do you qualify for these jobs? And Alex, you are the guru of talent placement, talent management. You bridge the gap between people and technology, and you bring the right people together, creating that productive, lasting relationship between your clients and their candidates. Talk to us a little bit about what you see out there in terms of companies that hire, how they hire, the jobs they're hiring for. And I believe you guys have an internship portal that you created specifically for high school students. So I dare say everyone here just perked up a little, and they're going to have a lot of interest about that. If you could talk to us a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Sounds good, Jarrett. Sounds good. So let me touch on everything that you just mentioned there, and also share with the attendees some background of myself as well. I started this company, Sherlock Talent, over 20 years ago, recognizing that technology is something that was going to be growing, and I loved technology and wanted to be a part of it one way or another. I started this business back in the 19s, as my own high school age children call the 90s. And back in those days, getting into technology in high school and middle school, I had learned basic programming, and then went on to a bachelor's degree at Washington University in St. Louis, and really studied science and enjoyed the technology, but also learned that I actually liked working with people and being entrepreneurial more than just coding in zeros and ones. So I think it's really important for each of you to that are in a technology field, find where it is that you love it the most. Is it at the application development level? Is it at being a data scientist? Is it at cybersecurity? Because at Sherlock, we help our clients hire the best technology professionals for all of their specialized needs. And that could very much be Python programming, front-end, JavaScript. SQL is incredibly important. SQL has been around for many decades and will be to come. So local employers such as AutoNation, Office Depot, these great local South Florida companies, they hire a breadth of technically skilled professionals, as well as interns, which I can talk more about. But through it all, something that everyone on this, everyone listening now must go after is those technical certifications, because those technical certifications are a way of showing an employer that if they hire you, there's going to be less risk in hiring you, because you have learned the technologies that they are using. And it's so important for an employer, when you're interviewing, it's so important for that employer to feel comfortable, to want to extend a job offer to you, because you have both the technical knowledge, and even if it's not a depth of knowledge because you haven't been working professionally, you've been a student, you have a breadth of technical knowledge because you got those certifications. So, it's very, very important. And the salaries, the typical salaries that South Florida companies are offering for programmers, for data scientists, for cybersecurity engineers, typical salaries that our clients will pay are anywhere from $50,000 per year, well above $200,000 per year. Now, if you're going for the 200,000, you will need some more experience than just a high school diploma and a year or two of experience. But you have to be on that continuous learning bicycle. Just know that you are always going to be learning. You have to always be learning. If you ever want to stop learning, then you're going to have to stop your tech career, because it's going nonstop. One thing that I realized from several years of recruiting technology professionals for our local employers was that we don't have enough professionals. We need more. And that really drove me to start an organization called Get My Interns. And in the past 5 years, the Get My Interns platform has helped place well over 10,000 high school students into internships. And a really fun thing about these internships as well is that they've been supported by well over $10 million in grants. So the students get paid through the grant funds, and the employers are typically able to hire those students at no charge. And so it's a great way, right? It's a great way for someone without experience to get experience. And Jarrett, I'd love to share one special story.
Please.
This is just really fantastic. This happened last year. I heard this story last year. It was a local rising high school senior in, public high school, part of the Academy of Information Technology, AOIT student, and just loved networking, loved IT security. I mean, he ate it up all the time, studied it, learned it as much as possible. He went after every certification he could get as a high school junior. And he got Cisco certifications, he got network security certifications. I mean, he was all over it. And he went in for an internship interview. And he did, and it was really important to him that he get an internship because it was paid. And he was really, it was him and his mom. And he really wanted to be able to help support her as well and contribute. And he got an internship last summer with a company in Broward, summer internship. He did so well, Jarrett. He did so well in his internship. He had the technical knowledge. He was able to truly contribute to that company. And at the end of his internship, they said, we want you to keep working for us. I know you're in high school. I know you're a senior in high school now, so you can't work for us full time, but we want you to keep working for us part time. And the day you graduate, you have a full-time job to start at a beginning base salary of $70,000.
Wow. That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
Right out of high school, $70K. He's got his certifications. He's there working full time now. So it's really beautiful to see examples like this, and it's inspirational for everyone. Jared, I don't believe that, not all high school seniors are graduating with $70K salaries to start, but it happens. It's real, and it's happening right here in South Florida. So I implore all of the listeners, all of the watchers here today, get your certifications, work on it, and love it, and express that passion when you're having an interview. Thank you, Jarrett.
Thank you. It's funny, Michael and I were sort of chatting offline. Michael was saying, knowledge is power, and I 100% agree. I mentioned at the beginning, technology is power, which it is, but knowledge is power. You've heard consistently from each panelist, keep learning, always learn. And in this case, it's the certifications. So before I lose you, Alex, real quick, what are the top certifications right now? Which ones are most in demand? I think you're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you. So certifications, I mean, from the CompTIA certifications, the networking certifications, the Cisco certifications, very good to get. But then there's also all these other certifications as well. It depends where your passion is. If, being a data scientist, I think there's some data science certifications that are available now that you can start getting. Even, database certifications and cybersecurity. It's wherever you're at, wherever your passion is going. If you want to be more of a software developer or more of an engineer, DevOps, basically learn anything that is cloud. Don't learn software that just installs on your desktop. That's, pre-2020. We're in a new world now. It's all cloud.
Perfect. So what I like to do now is go to a lightning round. I'm actually going to stick with you a little bit longer, Alex. I'm picking on you now, but it's only because you have so much knowledge in this. And the lightning round is going to be, let's talk about practical advice for successfully landing that job. We've talked about what jobs are out there. We've talked about, certain techniques you can do, et cetera. But I want to get into sort of the meat and potatoes of what practical advice we have for people to stand out. Now, you've given a great anecdote about the certifications, but what are some other good tips you can have to guarantee getting that interview? Please.
So one thing that every student should have accomplished by now, and if you haven't, get out there and do it, is build your own LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn is essential for business. It's essential for job networking. It's essential for presenting yourself, your professional self. This is a professional job board. This is, not for chit chat. But this is where you're going to post your certifications. If you have a special interest, you are going to research articles on that, maybe even write an article on it, write something that interests you. Because when you start looking for that new job, when you want to interview at a particular company, you want to have, your resume is going to go in front of that hiring manager. They're going to go straight to LinkedIn and see if what you're putting on your resume, you're also sharing with your network on LinkedIn, and that you're serious about being a professional. You've got a professional networking site set up, and then you start working that network, and you find the people that are at the companies that interest you, and you start contacting them.
Perfect. Albert, I'm going to go to you in a second with the exact same question in terms of practical tips, the things you've seen people do to land that interview and be successful at it. But for myself, I want to give my own tip, and I'll be very brief because I talk too much on this anyways. For me, it's research the job prospect. Research. No two organizations are the same. No two jobs are the same. And people sometimes, especially when they're right out of high school or even right out of college, think, well, I'm going to have a set way I approach every single one. And to me, that is what kills people. You always hear people say, well, there's thousands of job applicants. How do I shine? You shine by researching. You research what the organization is. Is it Citrix? Well, what are they all about? What are their values? What's their history? Is it the Miami Dolphins? What are their values? What's their history? What are they looking for? Depending on what the job is, data scientists, DevOps, etc., what specifically are they looking for? See if you can find someone who works there, someone who used to work there, and say, how do they see that position? You cannot research enough the organization and the job and the culture and the background, because that is going to help you figure out, and that's going to help you shine. Because when we on the other side of the table are interviewing you, we're going to walk away thinking, wow, this person, she really seemed committed to applying for this job. She really seemed like she wanted it. She learned as much as she could about us and as much about the position as possible. That shows us a commitment, and that shows us her research skills, if nothing else. Albert, what are you seeing out there in terms of what shines to you in potential job applicants? What's worked in the past for you?
Definitely. So thanks, Jared. One of the things that I wanted to stress is, many of us on the call today have a technical background or have a level of interest in technology at some level. One thing that I've seen, the people I've interviewed and the people I've seen really progress in their careers, take off, are the ones that, yes, having that technical foundation is extremely important, but you also have to have soft skills, because, we have a program called a Technical Analyst Program here at Citrix. And, a part of the training is presentation skills, public speaking, and especially for, people that are techies, or like they try to call them sometimes, a lot of them are not people, or I guess you can say the rumor or the joke is that they don't have people skills. And so, one of the things I've seen, not just for myself or for my colleagues, is to join clubs like Toastmasters. Toastmasters is an amazing forum for anyone that wants to improve their speaking skills. And why that makes you so important and why that makes you such an attractive candidate is because there are going to be tons of people that are extremely technical, but the ones that rise to the top are the ones that can translate those technical terms and take that and explain it to anyone. So I stress, as much as you learn the technology, also work on your presentation skills, work on your public speaking, because that will help you.
Perfect. Thank you, Albert. I believe now might be the time for another raffle. Is that right, Colleen?
Yes, I'm going to put that in the chat now.
All right.
Hold on, here we go.
All right, folks, next opportunity. Look in the chat window. Ignore us for 2 seconds now and look in the chat window. There's your question.
CompTIA, correct. That's Dylan. Dylan got it.
Impressive. Very impressive.
Yep, there's one more chat raffle going right now. Let me type it in. Here we go. Everybody ready?
All right, we have our next one. There it is, question 3. And you nailed every single one. It'll just be a first come, first serve on that one.
It is
excellent.
First serve. They did research the company. Dylan, thank you for that. But I think the first answer, it's misspelled Robin Anderson, but we're going to give it to you. LinkedIn. All right,
Excellent.
great. Thank you, Jared. Back to you.
Not a problem. Thank you, Colleen. Well done, guys. So we're coming close to the end. We have a special part dealing with mentoring, something that's near and dear to my heart. But before we get to that, just a couple of housekeeping items. You know, there's always certain bullet points we want to stress throughout this, and really want to nail home. We invite you all to do research on college offerings for studying data science and information technology. And also, we encourage you to register to attend the college town hall on Wednesday. I think there's going to be a flyer that we'll be able to make available. And there we go. The town hall meeting, you have it right there. I will talk very slow, so you have the opportunity to grab that information out there. There are numerous online curricula offerings. Some of these have already been mentioned. So please, we encourage you to review and consider these options to learn more and gain those certifications. I mean, you'll see information about WinCode, PMI, other resources that are on there. So we'll give you a second to get there, and I'm pretty sure we'll probably also email blast or some other way get that to you. All right. So while that's up there, you know, now let's talk about something that I think is absolutely critical, and it's something I do a great deal in my spare time, which is mentoring. You know, it's one thing to have the technical skills, whether they be in law or technology, et cetera, but then there's what we always call the soft skills. You know, those abilities to navigate, you know, complex organizations, or just how do you present to people. I absolutely love Albert's tip about Toastmasters, the public speaking organization. These are things that you're not going to get in a book. These are things that you can only really get when you talk to someone who's arrived at where you want to be, you know, that person you're looking up to. And that's why mentors or guides, or however you want to call them, are absolutely critical in your professional development. And to talk a little bit about that topic, we have 2 community partner representatives to briefly talk about the amazing mentoring leadership programs offered throughout our community. You know, mentoring, making smart choices, seeking guidance. So, Kareth, with the YMCA of South Florida, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. If you haven't already formed a relationship with your teacher, you know, give us some of the background on that.
Thank you very much, Jared. So I'm with the YMCA of South Florida, and I wanted to share with the students and the people who are involved in this session that here at the YMCA of South Florida, one of the things we try to do is invest in youth development. And having programs and opportunities like this present that platform so that we can expose students to opportunities that are out there. And I think the information that you guys provided will provide great insight for the students who are on this line. And I want the students to also understand that there's a lot of support that's out there. They just need to reach out. One of the things I encourage students to do is go to Google, type in your question about something that you're concerned about, may not have someone there to answer, and see what comes up. And there you'll have a bunch of resources that's available. But in addition to that, we do encourage our students to build relationships and network with the people who are located at their schools and in their communities. And one of the things we want them to realize that you have a brace advisor at the school who can help you with getting scholarships to get to college. You have your guidance counselor who you can touch base with. There's a social worker if you're having issues that you need to have addressed, deeply personal things. You have social workers who are available on campus. And there's also like a therapist who's also there to provide you with support. And let me just speak a bit about the programs that we do with the YMCA. We have our after school and summer programs, and the purpose of those programs are to help students close the achievement gap. And we also have a program where we have full-time staff who work in the day school as well as the after school, supporting students. And those full-time staff, they're called graduation coaches. It's going to be called Success Coaching for the new school year. And what they're responsible for is to keep the students on track for graduation. And that's an immense resource that's available in the 9 high schools that we operate in. And I will encourage students to make sure that they're networking, speaking with the people out there who can help them. Don't feel like you're alone. There are lots of people out there who are willing to provide you with support and information. Please make sure that you're reaching out. And some of the other community partners that we have out there that you can also look to, there is a Girls Who Code, Urban League, 5,000 Role Models, MTL, Take Stock, the Junior Achievement Career Bound, and you have Upward Bound, which is a program through Broward College. There's also the Boys and Girls Club. So there are a lot of community organizations that are out there to provide you with support. Don't feel like you're alone. Make sure you're taking your work seriously. I remember when I was when I was in university, one of the things we learned about was the work of John Dewey, who's one of the great educational thinkers of our time. And one of the things he said is, education is not preparation for life. Education is life. So if you're taking that perspective and you're connecting with the right people, you are positioned to bloom where you're planted, irrespective of whatever you're going through. Whatever challenges you're having, you have your education, the opportunity presents themselves, you have already equipped yourself, and you're going to be able to shine. So with that said, I want to turn it over to Albert, who is working in that space also to provide support with students and clearly has his background in technology. Let him talk more about the program that he's offering.
Sure. And so thank you so much. So yeah, I mean, I've been with Citrix for a while. I've been with them for 8 years, and I interned for 4 years when I was in college. And so currently I'm the senior customer success manager in our public sector organization. And what that means is I am the face of the services organization for some of our largest government accounts, like FBI, Veteran Affairs, Department of Justice, U.S. Postal Service. And one of the things at Citrix that really helped my career, I mentioned the internship already, but mentorship played a huge role in my career so far. And I had several mentors at Citrix. One of them actually was Mark Templeton, the former CEO of Citrix. And the story with that is, I was young, I was an intern, and they said, hey, you got to find a mentor. And so not really understanding, the chain of command, I just said, well, who is the boss, who is everybody's boss and the CEO of the company? So I sent him an email. I said, hey, I'm your new intern. I wasn't his intern. I was just an intern there. But I said, hey, I'm your new intern, and I would love for you to be my mentor. Surprisingly, he wrote me back and said, hey, you can meet me 7 a.m. every Tuesday. I'll mentor you. And that relationship went on for years. And I had other mentors at Citrix that really helped to really took me under their wing and really helped to cultivate my leadership skills. And so when I got to a place in my career where I felt like I should reach back, I started the AG Leadership Academy. And so I initially started it with scholarships only. I said, okay, I'm in sales. I had a really good year. I had a nice commission check. And I said, okay, I'm going to give 4 students at Deerfield Beach High School a $500 scholarship. From there, the program has evolved. We do community service events. We teach kids STEM with different STEM camps. We have a sales enrichment academy where we use Shark Tank as a learning tool and really teach kids not only the technical side of starting your own business, but how do you present? What does that mean? How do you do ownership? How do you do expansion? Things like that. And so, mentoring has always been something that was extremely important to me. And so that's one of the reasons why I started the program. And then representation is really important to me as well. When I look out and I see my coworkers, Jared mentioned this in the beginning, a lot of times you're the only person in the room. And so my goal was I want in 10 years for that not to be the case for those that are coming after me. And so I started this academy. That way I can start training you at a young age in science and technology and also open up my network to them. So when they do graduate, they have people that can help push them in different directions and use that network to get them different opportunities. And so one of the young men that's here with us tonight is Zaya Cooper. He's a member of the AG Leadership Academy. One of my mentees, and also what makes Zaya so impressive is he's also a peer mentor. And so, Zaire, if you wouldn't mind, I would love for you to kind of share your experience of being a part of the AG Leadership Academy.
How's everyone doing? Glad to be here. I'm Zaya Cooper, a third-year computer science major out of Florida A&M University. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone today. So I started off, I went to school at Pompano Beach High School. Both of my parents worked there both of my parents worked for a computer company, such as Citrix, for almost 2 decades. So I had a relevant relationship with the IT world. Although I was a normal student, I was a good kid, went to a great school, had great grades, and I also captained the football team. I was always uncertain about the path I wanted to take in college. So I sat there and I looked at my life and I decided that football wasn't the path I wanted to take. I chose to take the computer science route. And that wasn't because I was necessarily a wizard at programming, but because I enjoyed problem solving and critical thinking. Most importantly, I asked my parents what it took to be successful. And they told me that to get a good education and have a great job and to start somewhere like the technological world would be a good place to do that. So I did. After my freshman year, I was a bit unsure about the path, or what path specifically I wanted to take programming-wise, IT-wise. And my mom introduced me to a coworker, which was Albert. Albert took me under his wing. I became one of his mentee, and he helped me guide me through the right decisions. He understood the importance of networking and building leadership skills, and he taught me those things. He mentored me and guided. Always encouraging, supportive, and actually he's even helping me direct my path after college, setting me up with many internship opportunities and walks me through them step by step as much as necessary. He has showed me the importance of being a role model, honestly, being a mentor. I love it. I've chosen to become a mentor myself for many programs beyond his program. And I believe that every student should become a mentor. That's the main goal of being a mentee. The next stage is to become a mentor yourself and pass down that knowledge. My CS major, I love it. It's great. Working in groups and in partnerships, challenging projects are amazing as well. It's always immensely satisfying to accomplish your goals. So that's one thing that programming has really taught me. It's just as hard as the program can be, as hard as your classes are, attacking those goals and working together in partners and just with your group and handling those, it's so satisfying. Thank you for having me, everyone. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Zaire.
Thank you, Zaire. That was amazing. Gareth, I don't know if you want to close out the mentoring.
That was really amazing, Albert and Zaire. Thanks for sharing your experience. Just a public service announcement for the students who are signed on. If you're having challenges with getting access to technology or getting a computer, make sure you contact the Bridge to Life, and as well as you can speak with the contact at their school through the YMCA, and we will definitely try to connect you so that you can get access to the technology you need and access to a laptop so that you can continue your virtual learning. And with that said, I am turning over to Quaisha.
Okay, so this is Colleen. We're gonna have our last two, actually no, Kareth. Let me ask 2 chat raffle questions, and then to wrap things up, we're gonna ask each of our speakers, we're at 6:25, to give in a minute or less one key takeaway that students should leave here tonight with, the one thing that you would say or suggest for them. Before we do that, I'm getting ready to type 2 last chat raffle questions in the chat. Ready, go. Know both hard and soft skills. That is correct. That is the right answer. Congratulations, Julia. And last chat raffle question. Here you go. Yes. Yes. Wonderful. So Dylan, you won again. So congratulations to all. If we could go to the last slide, Glenn, or the second to last slide. So there are two upcoming, I'm sorry, speakers, leaders on the call. Before we go there, your 1 minute takeaway, and then we'll do upcoming events and reminder of the College Town Hall on Wednesday. My apologies. Jared, back to you for your 1 minute.
Thanks so much. So we're going to do the final lightning round. Just 1 minute takeaway. They've gotten a lot of information. So this is one of those that if you're going to take away one final recommendation or one distilling down, what would it be? Start with in 60 seconds. We're going to hold you to it. Michael?
I think that knowledge is power. You always have to be the best that you can be. And on those soft skills, being a small business, it's super important to be good on those soft skills. You can always learn those technical skills. Those soft skills are harder to come the longer you're in IT.
Absolutely. Kim?
My operating philosophy has been very simple. You've got to like what you do, and you've got to like who you work with. So take the time, do the research, test different waters, talk to people who are already in the field, and learn some of the different facets of technology. Because chances are you can find your niche.
Perfect. Alex?
Hey, so I've been pushing hard on tech skills, hard tech skills this whole time, but I really want to share with everyone. We are humans, and be human to one another. The reputation that you're establishing for yourself and into your future, it'll carry with you your whole life. So when you're talking with people, professionals, mean what you say what you mean, but don't be mean about it. Always be kind.
All right, Albert?
So one of the last things I just wanted to share with everyone is for all the students, you guys are on the right path. Continue and join programs like Bridge to Life. Make these connections. Be brave. Be bold. Seek out guidance. And there's plenty of people out here that are willing to help. You just got to be willing to roll up your sleeves and get to work. And so thank you all, and I wish you all the best. If any of you want to join my mentoring program, please find me, and I wish everyone their best.
Perfect. Zahir, I don't know if you're still with us, but do you have any final parting words?
Don't give up. Keep pursuing what you want. Enjoy your time. The hard parts are, I'm not done with it myself, but every bit of it, I love the process.
Perfect. And then as moderator, one of the perks is I get the final word. Mine will be, I think the greater the love of technology you can develop, the easier it is to be successful. For the most successful, I know technology isn't simply a paycheck, it's a passion. You genuinely, quote unquote, geek out over this stuff. And you see how it can change people's lives, just Caitlin's presentation alone. And at the end of the day, I think each of us, what you're trying to develop is look for the ability how in life to have more power and control over your lives. Well, that technology is that power. That knowledge is that power. And as you've heard, you don't necessarily need an intensive level of training or exposure to start tapping into it. So I absolutely encourage each of you to start jumping in. You heard Alex's wonderful testimonial about the one high school student that decided to jump into the deep end of the pool with the certifications. Don't be afraid to seek out that knowledge because you are empowering yourself. And with that, I think we have our slide up, which is reminding for the upcoming town halls. Remember the $500 prize in the College Town Hall. And good luck to you all. We appreciate your attendance.
So it is 6:30. I want to say a special thank you to all of our amazing leaders that are on the call tonight. If we can do a collective applause in the chat for everyone to thank Jarrett, what an amazing job you did as moderator. Kim, you're incredible. Alex, wonderful. Michael, always great respect. Albert, thank you so much. Zahir and Kareth. Really, really amazing job, number one. Number two, the chat raffle winners will receive an email tomorrow with your e-gift card. So congratulations again. And as Jared pointed out, there are 2 upcoming town halls. We have the date booked for marine industry. We're working on the public health sector. Both of those will be announced on B2L social media sites and on Eventbrite. So please do look us up. And stay tuned. We will be in touch with the recording of this session as well to all the registered attendees. Thank you all so much. Have a great evening.